Straight ahead, big boost. North Texas Congressman Colin Allred will receive millions of dollars from national Democrats as he tries to unseat Republican Senator Ted Cruz. We'll discuss the potential impact with Dallas County Democratic Party Chair Cardall Coleman and Dallas County GOP Chair Allen West. Squaring off for their first and only time, vice presidential candidates J.D. Vance and Tim Walz will debate each other on CBS News, why one debate expert sees a lot of verbal combat ahead. Speaking out, North Texans tell me what they think about the presidential race, including one person who's still struggling to make a decision. Good Sunday morning, I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics starts now. Hello and welcome to Eye on Politics. Hope you're having a great weekend. And we begin with a big boost for North Texas Congressman Colin Allred and his campaign to unseat two-term Republican incumbent Senator Ted Cruz. The Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee announced late last week it will make a new investment of millions of dollars into Allred's campaign for TV ads. It will be in addition to the ads paid for by Allred's campaign. The Real Clear Politics average of the three most recent polls shows Cruz with a 5 percentage point lead over Allred. One recent survey came from the Texas Hispanic Policy Foundation. It shows Cruz ahead of Allred by just 3 percentage points, about the same margin Cruz won in 2018. The Cook Political Report still considers this race a likely Republican. In the presidential race in the Lone Star State, the average of the three most recent polls shows former President Donald Trump leading Vice President Kamala Harris by about 5.7 percentage points. The Texas Hispanic Policy Foundation survey shows Trump leading Harris 50% to 44%. We spoke about the U.S. Senate race with the Dallas County Republican Party Chair, retired Lieutenant Colonel Allen West, and Dallas County Democratic Party Chair Cardall Coleman. And I asked them about the new money coming in for Allred from Senate Democrats.
Well, it's a huge deal. I mean, we saw a little bit of this when former Congressman O'Rourke ran. But I think there's a little bit of difference between how former Congressman O'Rourke approached this race than what I see with Colin Allred. You know, O'Rourke was everywhere. There are 254 counties in the state of Texas, and I believe that he just about hit every single one. I don't think we see that so much from Colin Allred, a lot of advertisements and things of this nature. So I think that they really want to make the point that Texas is in play. I don't know if that's going to be possible because, again, it's about the East Texas and West Texas, the shoulders that prop it up. But when you look at our major urban population centers, I think that's where they're hoping to get the most play out of Representative Allred, potentially winning that Senate seat.
Cardall.
Listen, I have a chance to talk to my colleagues around the state, other county chairs, even in rural spaces, right? And so I think the Allred campaign is making its way around to those places, but also Texas is just a huge land block. And so to be able to communicate with everybody, you have to use the power of the airways. You have to mail some of those traditional campaigning points. And so to be able to get that message across, it is a large state to be able to travel.
And so 2024 is obviously very different than 2018. And so I'm wondering, in 2018, we saw, O'Rourke came very close, less than 3 percentage points. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's going to be that close again in this year, which is, not a very great year for Democrats as 2018 was?
There's ability for it to be close and for the gap to absolutely close. We saw Congresswoman Liz Cheney touring Texas with Colin Allred, something that the likes that we've never seen before, a bipartisan tour during an election, and a member of Congress from another state who from the other side of the aisle endorsing Colin Allred. So making sure that we talk to every voter, not just the ones on the Democratic side of the aisle, but making sure we're talking to those who are questioning, does this party still share my values? Do I have a place here? And making sure that everyone feels welcomed.
How big of a deal was that endorsement, do you think? And is that going to make a difference?
It's funny because I was just out in Wyoming last week in Sheridan, Wyoming, and I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. If anything, it's a head scratcher when Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney are out there because once upon a time, the Democrat Party referred to Dick Cheney as Darth Vader. So if it's more about personality than policy, I think that's a big question. But, when I look at what is going to be happening, we got a debate coming up between Mr. Allred, Congressman Allred, and Senator Cruz. I think that that's going to be a very big deciding factor because, again, let's get these two individuals together and let's have the debate on policy and let's have the debate on what policies are best for the state of Texas and the United States of America.
Why do you think this race has become so competitive? Because everybody always says, well, Texas is a red state. So what's going on here on the ground? How motivated are Republicans?
Well, I mean, again, you look at the spine of I-35 from Denton all the way down to San Antonio. You look at Houston-Harris County. You look at El Paso County. Democrats have done very well in the major urban population centers. I just got back in, as you know, from my hometown of birth, Atlanta, Georgia, and you see the same thing in Georgia, a red state, 159 counties, but yet 5 or 6 counties are, very much so in the blue column, and that has a big effect on what you saw. And now you have Senators Warnock and Ossoff. So I think that playbook is exactly what the Democrat Party would like to see here in Texas.
Cardall, let me ask you a different question. How big of an impact has the fact that Vice President Kamala Harris is the nominee now, top of the ticket? What impact has that had on the race here in Texas?
It's made the world of difference.
How?
Week to week, we see hundreds, both Wednesdays, Sundays, Thursdays, hundreds of volunteers coming to volunteer at our county headquarters and at our satellite offices, whether that's phone banks for Kamala, calls for Kamala, which we call it, block walking, letter writing. So we've had a groundswell of volunteers and people who are energized, those who've not been with us in a while, right? Those who have not really participated since 2008, and then a bunch of new faces. So I think it's made the world a difference.
We're about 3 weeks away from the start of early voting and 5 weeks away from Election Day, and we went to the recent Plano Balloon Festival to listen to what people had to say about the presidential race.
Get lighter.
You guys picked a great night. If you don't mind the heat, it's going to be a great weekend for the Balloon Festival.
Registered to vote? You voted?
Yes,
You are?
I'm voting for Kamala.
You're voting for Kamala Harris?
Yes.
All right. And are you guys, well, how about you?
I'm her cousin. I'm from North Carolina.
Ah, okay.
She came a long way to be at the Balloon Festival.
All excited about the vice presidential debate?
Yeah, I love Tim Walz. I think he's great.
And
He legalized marijuana for his state.
you like that?
I do.
And so let me ask you, what do you want to hear in that debate? What do you think that debate's going to be like?
Ooh, I think we're going to hear a lot of untruths from one side and a lot of rebuttals from the Democratic side.
And not a lot of people know who these folks are, right? I mean, they're not household names, Tim Walz and J.D.
Yeah, unfortunately.
What do you think of that?
I think it's unfortunate because I think that each one brings something, to their campaign, good or bad.
Hot one out here.
It is. It's very warm.
Welcome to Texas. We're from CBS News Texas.
Yes.
You all set to vote?
Yes.
Have you made up your mind?
I'm really having a tough time.
Really? Why is it so? I mean, because everybody knows the choices.
This to be.
You don't want this to be on TV?
I don't love my choices.
And so you're struggling.
Struggling.
Yeah. Are you going to watch the vice presidential debate?
Yes, I watch every debate.
And what do you think that's going to be like? Because not a lot of people know who J.D. Vance is
Or
and
Tim Walz. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm going to watch it. I don't miss a debate.
And you're really going into this eyes wide open if you haven't made up your mind.
Exactly.
What do you think is going to be that determining factor for you to make up your mind?
I love the values and what one of the candidates has done, but I don't like his personality, his meanness,
You like the policies.
the rhetoric.
You like the policies,
Yes.
but not the person.
Correct.
And so that's the struggle.
That's the struggle.
And how do you think you're going to solve that?
I don't know. I have a few weeks
To be determined.
to be determined.
Honestly, I'm voting for God. If I could register and vote for God, I would do this.
Are you set to vote? Are you registered? Or
I
you
am
voting?
totally registered to vote. I'm definitely
definitely registered and looking forward to it.
And how important is this election to you?
Probably the most important one in my lifetime.
Why?
I feel like we're at a crossroads as a country, and I think it's going to go one of two directions. My deal is I just want everybody to know the facts, not all the personalities and things like that. Just want them to know the facts and just almost a line-by-line breakdown of the difference between the two parties.
And so let me ask you, are you going to be watching the vice presidential debate?
I'll be watching everything.
Everything.
I'm into it.
So what do you think that's going to be like? Because not everybody knows who Tim Walz and J.D. Vance are.
I do a little research, and actually I feel like J.D. Vance is going to hold his own.
I really enjoyed speaking with voters there. And so now it's time for our weekly segment where we track the presidential battleground states, which are crucial because this is where the race will be won. There's a little movement from last week. In Arizona, former President Donald Trump leads Vice President Kamala Harris by 2 percentage points, a little higher than last week's margin. In Nevada, Harris increased her lead over Trump slightly and now is ahead by 1.4 percentage points. In Georgia, Trump is ahead by 1.5 percentage points, which is slightly lower than last week. Harris's lead over Trump in Wisconsin shrunk a little from last week to 0.9 percentage points. She's gotten a slight bump in Michigan, now 1.8 percentage points over Trump. In Pennsylvania, Harris is ahead by 0.9 percentage points, down slightly from last week. And Trump has a little more breathing room in North Carolina, leading Harris by 1.3 percentage points. It was nearly tied last week. Because the race remains so close, the one and only vice presidential debate between Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Republican Senator J.D. Vance on CBS News could be crucial. Coming up next, what each candidate needs to do to win when Eye on Politics comes right back. Welcome back to Eye on Politics. Now squaring off, the vice presidential candidates' one and only debate takes place Tuesday on CBS News. CBS News evening news anchor and managing editor Norah O'Donnell and the Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan will serve as the debate moderators. With the presidential race still so close, Dr. Ben Voth, director of debate at SMU, says this face-off could be crucial.
I think both of these debaters are actually fairly different from their lead presidential candidates. I think there's a lot more potential here for incisive clash on the issues. And the other thing is just that the situation is such that the election race overall is so close and just keeps getting closer. I think that it makes this debate exceptionally important.
Why? I mean, let's talk about the fact that the race is so tight. I mean, normally a vice presidential debate not as important as a presidential debate. So why do you think it'll make a difference?
Well, I think, again, because it is so close, any little nudge can make a difference. And both of these candidates have come in kind of, I think, late to this process where we're still kind of getting to know who they are. And so I think there really is potential for them to nudge the race, 1 or 2 degrees. And that is, because we are in such a close race, that was all it would take for, either Harris or Trump to kind of gain a lot out of it. Both men have done some debating in recent past. And I think sometimes people forget that, for example, in 2008, the Palin-Biden debate ended up being one of the most watched debates in presidential history, even though it was a vice presidential debate. And most of the time we expect them to be smaller audiences, things like that. But this might be a similar large event.
So do you expect this to be attack, attack, attack?
I think there will be a lot of attack. I think there's been a lot of fodder that's already created by Harris-Trump. I mean, we just had the debate between them really just like a couple of weeks ago. It created a lot of fodder. I mean, there's some things out of, Springfield, Ohio, which Vance is from, where there was a lot of controversy in that debate where probably there's going to be charges back and forth about some of that content. And the fact that, again, Vance is from Ohio and some of the Springfield controversy where, yeah, there are roughly 20,000 Haitian immigrants that have come into that community. That's a pretty hot commodity in the overall election debate. Lots of arguments about whether it's false, about the cats and dogs and things like that. So there's a lot of strange things that are in the air for the two vice presidential candidates to swat at pretty vigorously.
I mean, there were reports of the fact that there were attacks on animals, but nothing has ever been proven about this at all. And yet this issue still has legs.
Right, and I think Vance had a very big role in that because he's still senator from Ohio. According to him, he was trying to represent his constituents, and so there were reports that he was relaying. But he's a big driver to the cats and dogs story, and so I would be surprised if they just kind of let that go in this vice presidential debate.
Fact-checking also became very much a controversy in the past presidential debate. What impact do you think that could have on this debate?
Well, I really think fact-checking is kind of in what I would call a pendulum swing, where in the CNN debate on June 27th, there was very little fact-checking. And we know from the interviews that were done after the debate with the ABC moderators, they felt like there was too little fact-checking in the June 27th debate. Now, I think in the aftermath of the September 10th debate, there's kind of a similar backlash against ABC, where they did 5 fact checks of Trump, but 0 of Harris. And so I think we're going to either see less fact-checking in this round or a more balanced fact-checking that maybe tries to fact-check Walz as well as Vance.
So what does each candidate need to do to win this?
Yeah, in order to win, I think that Vance probably needs to put to rest kind of that cat-dog controversy that kind of swirls around him and try to establish himself as a reliable purveyor of the arguments that he's making. He also probably wants to try to demonstrate some synchronicity with the head candidate. He sort of recently had said that he was out of step with Trump and kind of misspoke on some issues. And so showing kind of his allegiance to the lead, I think, is going to be important for him. I think for Walz, I think he wants to surpass kind of the expectation that he's created, that he's kind of not very good at debating. He told the Harris campaign that one of his limitations was that he wasn't very good at debate. I personally watched him on his governor debate last night and thought he did pretty good, but I think he'll want to demonstrate that he can go toe-to-toe with a Yale law graduate and master kind of the substantive debate elements and be a strong asset to the Harris campaign.
The debate starts at 8 p.m. Tuesday and will be 90 minutes long, and you can watch it right here on CBS Texas. Coming up, we dive into the Texas Supreme Court's opinion that upholds the state fair gun ban. And Attorney General Ken Paxton weighs in on the decision when Eye on Politics returns. More fallout from the first attempted assassination on former President Donald Trump. A U.S. Senate investigation put the blame squarely on the U.S. Secret Service. Sarah Jenkins has this week's brief.
An interim Senate report revealed significant planning, communication, and security failures within the Secret Service during former President Donald Trump's July rally in Pennsylvania, where the first assassination attempt took place. The 94-page report identified issues in the command structure, poor coordination with local law enforcement, inadequate resources, and ineffective site security. Key findings included constant radio communication problems among agents, delays in responding to alerts about suspicious individuals, and failures in drone operations, including an agent going without radio the entire day and the Secret Service employee operating the drone system having to call a toll-free helpline for support. Despite receiving information about a potential threat, the committee found that agents did not take appropriate action to protect Trump, one agent saying it did not cross his mind to notify someone to get Trump off the stage. The agency acknowledged the report's findings, saying many aligned with its own internal reviews, and it is implementing many of the committee's recommendations.
The Secret Service will receive an additional $230 million in the continuing resolution that both the House and Senate passed last week. The CR, as it's known, will keep the federal government funded through December 20th. Big Tex is once again welcoming people to the State Fair of Texas, and a controversial new policy to ban guns will stand. That's because on Thursday night, the Supreme Court of Texas ruled unanimously against the Attorney General's emergency request to overturn the fair's new policy. 3 of the justices from the state's highest civil court slammed the Attorney General's office for not taking a position on whether the fair, a private entity, has the authority to keep those with concealed firearms permits to carry their handguns. The 3 justices said, quote, "It is a question on which both law-abiding handgun owners and the operators of the state fair deserve a clear answer. It is a question to which further litigation may provide a clearer answer. but it is not a question answered or even addressed by the state's emergency filings in this court. This court cannot possibly order the state fair to allow handguns to be carried at this year's fair when the party seeking that relief does not even argue that Texas law obligates the fair to do so. Paxton says the city and fair cannot block Texans from carrying weapons on public property if they have concealed carry permits, but the fair has said it's leasing the property from the city and that as a private, nonprofit organization, it can set this new policy. The city of Dallas has said it has nothing to do with the fair's new policy. In a statement Friday, Attorney General Ken Paxton said, quote, "This case is not over. I will continue to fight this on the merits to uphold Texans' ability to defend themselves, which is protected by state law. While Texas clearly prohibits this type of gun ban, I will be working with the legislature this session to protect law-abiding citizens' Second Amendment rights on public property." And remember, you can watch our full interviews on our website, cbsnewstexas.com. Scroll down to the Eye on Politics icon. That's all for Eye on Politics this week. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening at CBS News Texas. Have a great weekend, and I hope to see you again next week.